good afternoon to all of you all, late afternoon to some in the East Coast. We are just thankful for you all being in community with us today. Our Learning Collaborative for the Preventing Trafficking of Girls Project. This is our 5th session, so we have one more left, but we will be in communication with you all on what the next steps are, if you need access to the past recordings, and if you have new team members that you are interested in joining the future Learning Collaborative sessions that we'll be having. Again, welcome to the 5th session, Program Evaluation and Sustainability, brought to you all by OVC and Youth Collaboratory. My name is Kanisha Lenore Jean-Baptiste, and I'm a Training and Capacity Manager with Youth Collaboratory. I'm based in Las Vegas, Nevada, ancestral land of the Paiute people. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm just excited for today's conversation because it's critical to the work that we do. And I'm going to pass it over to our director, Joy, for her introductions.
Thank you, Lenore, and good day, everybody. Happy Monday. It's Tuesday. For those of us who had yesterday off, it's a very strong start to the week. Definitely starting off running, and I am too excited about the conversation that we get to have today. I am Joy. I use she, her pronouns. I am on ancestral Ohlone lands, Oakland, California, and I serve as the director of programs here at Youth Collaboratory. And one of the things that we have heard repeatedly from you all that you appreciate about this space is the ability to connect with one another, to connect with your peers in the work. So that's what we want to do, where we want to start today. Before we get into sustainability and evaluation and hear from one of our amazing partners in the work, is we want to give you that connection, that opportunity to connect with one another. So we're going to go into breakout rooms for about 5 minutes, and you'll be with one other person. And in that breakout room, I'd love it if you could share your name, your program, and a success that you had this year. Anything that you see as something that went well for you so far in 2023. Maybe it's related to work. That would be great. So thank you so much to the GSD team who is supporting us. If you could help with getting those breakout rooms ready, we will head over there and we'll see you back shortly in 5 minutes. I'm glad that you all got a second to connect with one another. And I want to open space for just one more of those opportunities. So hopefully we can get an opportunity to connect with somebody different, but if not, that's okay. The second question is, what is your current best practice for motivating yourself through tough work days? What is your personal best practice for motivating yourself through tough work days? And take a second to think about that. I will give an example. Mine is music. I have a playlist that is specifically for getting tasks done. For the less than exciting tasks, but necessary things that we must get done to get through to the good stuff. So we're going to go back into breakouts for 5 minutes, and I'll see you all back here shortly. Welcome back, everybody. Anybody want to share a practice that they felt inspired by hearing, or something that they're currently doing to stay motivated on the days you got to push through?
I don't mind sharing. I was paired up with Becca, and one of the things that we both kind of had in common is just doing something that gives you what Becca called a dopamine hit. So whatever that is, like sometimes I just need to go outside and like walk to my mailbox and just be in fresh air for a few minutes. Or one of the things that we both do is like maybe just like go on our phones and like watch a TikTok or go on social media for 5 minutes and just not be behind the computer. Just something to kind of, quick jumpstart, renew us to continue for the day.
Yeah. It's really nothing like fresh air. Nothing like it. I also have heard that in stressful situations, a game of Tetris is really helpful because you have to focus on moving shapes and you have to think about something else. And so just throwing that out there as an opportunity. Anybody else want to share before we dive in for today?
I like jump in. Go for it.
Sorry, real quick. I like one thing Amber said about being that one person that can help. And I took away from that just trying to really connect with that individual, and seeing if I can be that one person. And I like that idea, in that moment. Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind and not feel overwhelmed by, so many things going on, but that one person in that one moment.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I was inspired by Danielle's. So Danielle works directly in their community in Boston. And what, they were able to share was knowing your week ahead and not having all your difficult conversations like just compiled in like 1 day or 2 days, but kind of separating them. And then knowing those things that do bring you joy, or if there is going to be some good news, having that be the follow-up after a difficult conversation. So kind of really ending those days on a positive note. I was like, man, if I knew that a few years ago, my burnout would look different. So,
Right.
I really enjoyed that.
That is sound advice and a good way for me to look at my calendar a little differently for the coming month, for sure.
Yes.
Also, I should have started this by saying happy Black Futures Month, happy Black History Month, some people call it. I'm very futurist in my approach. I feel like Black folks have always been futurist in all of the ways. That's how we got from history to present and how we'll get to the future. So happy February. Also, last week was Black Girl Freedom Week. So happy belated Black Girl Freedom Week. I hope that you all are enjoying February 2023. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? We did our welcome. We had some opportunity to connect with each other, and we're going to spend some time talking about sustainability and evaluation. We'll touch on it just a little bit, and we'll share some resources to you, but we want to spend the bulk of our time today hearing about sustainability and evaluation in practice, and we'll do that by having a program spotlight, and we'll hear from Amber Knight from Gwen's Girls, who will share with us about just some real tools, the real practices that they have been using. And then we'll have a discussion after that. And again, follow up with some resources that we'll share with you and allow you a chance to complete the evaluation. So with that, we're going to jump right into sustainability and evaluation. Oh, but before we do,
Before we do, we're going to go into our community agreements because we are a community today and there's going to be a lot of great discussion. So some things that we want to just share with you all, we've done this in the past, we've shared and given access to this, but just to make sure that we all remember, take space and make space. So the conversation is as good as we are willing to participate in it. So we want to hear from you all in today's conversation, understanding that everyone brings something to the table, even if it is just an appetite. And then I'm going to jump around here just for time purposes. But another thing is to agree to challenge each other through questions. So we're all trying to understand more deeply, but we want to listen to understand in today's conversation. And the one that's the most critical, and I would honestly say the most important, is take care of yourself in today's conversation. So making sure you have your water, making sure that you're comfortable, making sure that you have those basic needs being met in today's conversation. And then also learning leaves the room, but stories stay. You never know, we might end up getting into a deep conversation. So take what you learned from that conversation and share it, but maybe the details can stay in our little Zoom community. And acknowledging that oppression and racism are real and present. We say that with everything that we do, because for us to be able to dismantle systems that brought us to this place, we need to be able to acknowledge that those systems exist. So these are our community agreements. We are thankful for you all to be in community with us today. Take care of yourself and each other as we jump into today's conversation. So program evaluation and sustainability. It's not the fun part, right? Because it doesn't talk to the passion piece about the work that we're doing. It doesn't talk about the excitement or like why we love it. But in reality, it's in all that we do. For our program and for us to make the impact that we want to make in our communities, our programs need to be sustainable. For our programs to be sustainable, we need to be able to have effective ways to evaluate them. Next slide. So sustainability, what is that exactly? Well, sustainability addresses how organizations can effectively adapt to the changing environments. This is staff turnover, funding, policy changes, new community needs in order to maintain consistent and quality services. We've all had to go through a huge sustainability pivot and change when we all went through a global pandemic, right? So our programs, the way that we do the work, our organizations will never be the way it was pre-COVID, right? But what we also learned is where were those areas that we could have done better? Where were those areas that we needed to be a little bit more sustainable? A key factor of sustainability is strategic planning. So it's having those conversations outside of the young people that we're providing services to. Strategic planning is the ongoing planning for renewal and implementation. So really addressing our programs, really addressing what works, that doesn't work. Difficult conversations have to be the heartbeat of how we do this work in order for it to be sustainable. And I think a lot of times we kind of want to avoid those things, but what has served your program? What has made your program excel? But then for us to really be sustainable is really addressing what hasn't worked. How does our social media presence look? How does our staff turnover look like? When we talked about earlier, I joked about like, man, if I knew about my calendar, I wouldn't have been so burnt out, right? What is burning out our staff members now that we're in hopefully a post-COVID era, but we still see high turnovers in a lot of the programming that we're doing. So in order for us to be sustainable, it's really thinking about this, is the continuous of conversation about what's working and also what's not working in our program models. Key factors in order for our programs to be effectively sustainable. So these are some things that when we were looking around all nation, when we see programs that have like just historical legacy that's been here for a long time, these are some of the things that we see that strengthen their programs. One, collaboration. One program cannot do it all. I think we see like when they say like a jack of all trade, a master of none, or however that goes, right? Like when you have 1,000 things that your program is doing, then that means you're doing it all okay. But if you have a couple of things that your program is excelling in, that's when we know we have a program that is very sustainable because it's strong and it has the capacity to address where it's not thriving because it's not having to go through all different areas, all different types of programming. We're not spreading ourselves thin in how we provide services. Community resources. This is similar to collaboration, right? So we've seen programs, for instance, maybe you're working with young people, you're working with survivors of trafficking, but you may not have access to a mentorship program, right? So what does it look like to collaborate and finding another resource outside of your programming where you can bring mentors into your programming? We've also seen becoming effective advocates. This one is very critical when we talk about sustainability because as social service providers, we are activists. And it's time that we start really blurring those lines when we talk about social justice and also when we talk about social services. You're fighting for the inclusion, for the space of the young people that are coming into your programming. And until we can start addressing the work in that way, the young people will come into our organizations, not feel seen, not feel heard, and they leave. And when we don't have young people within our programming, then we don't necessarily really have a sustainable programming. Staff training. Staff training is very critical to our work. So when we know that things are evolving, because we know that the issues are currently evolving, because humans are currently evolving, is your staff able to have access to all the information, right? And not in a way that we've seen historically where it's like, here's all these Zoom meetings and here's all these conferences, now good luck. But no, honestly, are we holding spaces where we're bringing team members together to actively grow, to take up space, to ask questions? And also in staff training, one thing that we wanted to add that we're very intentional about is part of the training is we got to train folks on how to take care of themselves, right? So does it look like in your programming, hey, at noon, we want everyone to go to lunch, right? Another way you could utilize community resources, partnering with a local restaurant and making sure that you have access to food, not just for the people you're providing services for, but for your staff members, right? Do you have a healing room? So where staff members are able to go in there, read a book and take a lunch break. What does your staff room look like? Do you have access to reading and knowledge? Do you pay for these type of things? All of that is under the wheelhouse of staff training and making sure that staff members have access to their tools. Because a lot of times when we see burnout, it's not just because the person doesn't want to do the work anymore. It's because they're tired, right? Of always having to do the work and having limited resources. So self-care is also a part of that training. Clear policies. Clear policies is a big one, right? So making sure that everyone's in agreement, that everyone has clarity around the programming, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how. And then finally, diversified funding. This one is really critical to our work because when we think about expansion, right? So you might see in your programming, there are areas where you might need, let's say, additional gift cards for bus passes, but the funding that you have right now is very restrictive. When you have diversified funding, it creates opportunities for you to be able to have more resources that you can bring into your organization so that your organization is more holistic and is addressing the needs of that young people that you're serving. So those are some of those key factors we wanted to share with you all today in regards of what it looks like to have a sustainable program model.
Thank you so much for that, Lenore. We had know and have seen, and I'm sure you all have seen from your peer organizations when you're looking around over these last 3 years in particular, there are some organizations that are no longer here. There are many staff who have rotated out of organizations. And we know that ultimately this turnover of organization and staff, it decreases the ability of us to make an impact. And it's difficult sometimes because I go here in Oakland into the meetings and I'm seeing some of the same people that I've seen for the last 10 years. And then I'm also seeing people I've never met before. So those of us who have been around for a long time are sad that we still have to be doing this work. And we're having these circular conversations because people are leaving so often, organizations and individuals alike, and our community is suffering because of it. Is that loss of wisdom? When you, Amber, if you were to leave your organizations, Lenore, if you were to leave your organization, there would be a gap, right? That there's a wisdom that you all, an approach that you bring to this work that you just can't replace. And so we're seeing the impact of that in our communities and in our young people. So we want to avoid at all costs these changes and these turnovers, that are avoidable. There's some growth and things that happen that make absolute sense. People don't have to do the same thing forever. But how do we pass on the information and how do we create organizations where the person could leave, but the work that they do and their wisdom stays? That means that they have to have the proper exit process, that they, all of those things that has to happen. So in any case, one of the organizations that has stood the test of time and continues to do amazing work is Gwen's Girls in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we had the honor and privilege of visiting them during an amazing event that they have annually. And we're just floored and amazed by the leadership of the young people, the centering of the young people, the focus and support of the staff. And it was also a fun event. And so whenever we get the opportunity, we ask to speak to Gwen's Girls about their approach and their method of doing the work. And today we are joined, and Amber is normally with us all the time, but we're not always putting her on the spot and saying, hey, can you answer some questions and tell us about your approach? But I would love to have Amber come on, unmute, and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are. And then we can go forward with a couple of other questions I want to ask you about your work and approach to sustainability and evaluation.
Okay, well, my name is Amber Knight. I am a mother of 5. I'm a grandmother of 2. I'm from the Pittsburgh area. I grew up in the Pittsburgh area. I started working in social work, mainly with, I originally started working with male adolescents that were placed in group home that had aggressive behaviors. What made me interested in the field is because as a teenager, I was a system involved youth. I happened to do 2 years maximum security in a place called Danville. It's called Danville Maximum Security for adolescent females. What made me desire to work with youth is because I knew that there was something better inside of me, but nobody was willing to pull it out. Like, there were no skills that I was gaining. There was very little people that cared about me. It was mostly people that wanted to come to work for their 9 to 5 and they wanted to go right back home. If I had someone that was willing to mentor me, willing to guide me, I think that I would have gone a lot further. I mean, here and there, I had a lot of people that believed in me and I learned a couple of things from them, but I never really had someone that was consistent. And with not having someone consistent, after a while, you get tired of telling your story. You get tired of explaining why you're so angry, why you have low self-esteem. You get tired of telling the same old story. So my goal was to basically be that person that I wish that I had in my life. I started off working in group homes. Then I started working with the youth support partner unit. It's with Allegheny County, and it's adults that used to be system involved that in turn work with youth that are now system involved, and we help them navigate and become successful. Just throwing out there, I have many youth that I'm still in contact from that then, and that was about 10 years ago, maybe, that have become successful and do let me know that they appreciate me being consistent. Excuse my son, he won't be quiet. They appreciated me being consistent. So when I hear that from other people, it just makes me continue to be consistent with the youth. So I have like an open communication. The whole city probably has my phone number, which I wouldn't recommend because it can become overwhelming for some people. You know, I'm one of those people. Text me so that I won't be overwhelmed. When I'm ready to text back, I can text back. I don't have to get in a long conversation, but I'm always there for people. I think that that's a big reason why people trust me, and they're comfortable coming to me with certain situations. And I'm just not a judgmental person. I'm just not. Whether you are a robber, you can be a killer, like there's something in you that's positive. There's something that I can learn, someone else can learn, that we can pull from this. So ultimately, I worked for the Urban League and Family Support for some time, but I felt like I wasn't doing the case management the way that I could have been. I think that the issue with that was I was starting with adults that had already set their mind as to what they wanted to do, how they wanted to do things. And I felt like I needed to start a little bit further back and go back and work with the youth. So a friend of mine that works at Gwen's Girls gave me a call and said, "Hey, are you happy at your job?" I said, "Hey, I'm really not." She said, "Well, why don't you come to Gwen's Girls? We got an opening." So I went in as just working under the stores, the See the Destiny program, excuse me. And that is basically working in sex trafficking, which in my past as a youth, I have some past issues with sex trafficking and being involved in the sex games at the age of 13 until I was probably mid 20s. I had a heavy involvement in gang activity and sex trafficking. And that's another part of my story that one day you guys probably can hear. So she called and asked me would I mind coming in and working with some girls in that program. After about 2 months of me working there, we had again some staff that was unable to stay, and they asked me if I wanted to take the responsibility of become a supervisor. And until then, until they had asked me that, I kind of had taken a back seat, so they didn't even know how much I had to offer until I became a supervisor. So now I am where I am. Supervise staff, I train staff, and to looking at situations completely different because a lot of the issue was it was hard finding African American females to come in and work with the youth. So I kind of had to work with other women, which are wonderful women, but it was a process making sure that they were culturally competent and able to work with the youth and understanding how certain family dynamics might be, or how certain youth may come off aggressive or may come off like they're being disrespectful, but that's just basically their way of communication. So I guess that's really basically
Yeah.
all I have to offer. I hope I gave you enough.
Oh
in
my
that.
goodness, that was awesome. You're kind of walking us through your entry into the role that you are in right now with Gwen's Girls, and
Yeah.
how that speaks to kind of the pathways to leadership that we're always talking about here at Youth Collaboratory, how important it is to bring people from the community to these programs,
Mhm.
see them as leaders and invest in them as leaders and listen to them as leaders. And as we think about program sustainability and evaluation, it has to be grounded in community, because we often ask ourselves at the end, how are we doing the assessment?
Mhm.
What questions are we asking? And so I appreciate you sharing kind of your pathway to the work. I know that Gwen's Girls has been around for a long time and offers quite a few services. Can you give us just a snapshot of some of the services that Gwen's Girls provide?
Okay, before I give the services, I'm just gonna give you a brief history. Miss Gwendolyn Elliott started the program. She actually was one of the first African American female police officers in the city of Pittsburgh. She eventually made it to be the first African American commander, female commander in the city of Pittsburgh. And basically her story is while she was working, she's seen a lot of youth, especially females, coming with trauma, and there wasn't a lot of services for them, but there were a lot of services for the males. So when she retired, this is when she started Gwen's Girls. So this is basically where the concept of Gwen's Girls comes into basically finding supports for females that are going through the same struggles that the males were going through, and now they had those supports. Initially, she started off with a group home, and it was even for teenagers that had kids. They can be pregnant, they can have kids, they can come and stay in a group home with their child so that they weren't separated from their child, or their child put in one foster care and they're put in another foster care. So ultimately, every program that's designed is to keep families together and to empower African American women. So that's just a quick overview so that you understand that every program that is affiliated with us, or every program that we have, it is to empower Black youth, not just the youth, but to empower us as well. So one of the programs that we have is an after school program. The girls coming after school, they're picked up, they're fed. We have STEM instructors to help them with STEM work. We have tutors to help them with tutors. We also have a program that is virtual tutoring. You don't have to be a part of Gwen's Girls, and it's co-ed. You could be male or female. If you need any assistance with any tutoring or any type of schoolwork, you can get that virtually as many times as you need to, and as many times that it's available for you. We also have a summer program. The summer program is similar to the after school program, but it's Monday through Thursday. There is a therapist available at all times for all the youth. There is an extra staff available for any youth that may need a check-in or may need to step out. And there are also other programs that may assist for the after school program or the summer program if kids have any other issues that they may need to be addressed. We also have a parent support person that is directly for the parents, because a lot of the times we're working with the youth, we're giving these youth all these skills and all these different ways to cope and to move on from trauma, but then we still have that parent that has none of these skills and is still re-traumatizing his child. So we try to get the parents the same services or what services is needed as we're working with the youth. So it kind of gives the parents something to do, because sometimes they're a distraction to the youth, you know. So we have that as well. Then we have the See the Best of Me, which is what I started in. I still carry a caseload to See the Best of Me until we find someone who is able to work with those type of situations, because it could get very emotional and it can get draining dealing with youth, especially dealing with molestation, dealing with them possibly being pimped or trafficked. It's a lot to deal with, and you have to know what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. So we're very, very particular on who we hire in that department. So right now I carry the whole caseload to See the Best of Me. We also have the STARS program. These are youth that a lot of times we see youth come in and their issue is parent-child conflict. It's not necessarily necessary that they are having behavioral issues, but maybe just typical teenage issues. So we'll have a mentor. Oh, that's so nice. We'll have a mentor work with them and basically give them the skills to be able to cope, and maybe even find them a job. Maybe the situation is they're spending too much time at home. Maybe they need after school activities, or we basically go in and we try to figure out what the problem is before it becomes probation issue or some type of issue that'll get them in more trouble than they need to be in. We just recently joined with the United Way, and that program with the United Way is basically you dial 311, you let them know who you would like to connect to, and it's another thing for parent-child conflict, so that the police is not constantly just going out to people's homes, arresting youth, especially African-American youth, putting them in jail, and that's co-ed as well. We help males, females, whoever needs the help. Or one of those situations where you're not sure if it's a CPS or a GPS. Do I need to call CYF? no, let's not call CWAF. Let's see if we could get in there, get some services in there and stop the ball from rolling too far. Because sometimes these families just need resources. They really don't need system involvement. And sometimes once systems get involved, it's very hard, especially for African Americans to get out of it. So I believe, oh, one more. We have MPLC. It's when we go into the schools and we do a program. It's called like Girl Circle, and we do different activities and coping skills with middle school, elementary school. We just picked up elementary school, middle school, and high school. And we do different groups and programs during our lunch once a week. What it is to be a friend, what it is to be an African American female, what is discrimination, what is trauma, we do a bunch of different groups. And it's mainly the main focus, the thing that I'm missing is that everything is based around the youth's choice and voice. So everything we do, we don't do it until we speak to the youth. We don't do it until we speak to the staff and we get input from staff. We don't do it until we get input from the parents. Everything that we do, we consider everyone else involved. So those are all the programs. I think that I have not missed any.
Well, that was
I did. I really did. And it's a program that I run. It's called the Gala, the Black Girls Equity Alliance. Basically what it is youth that we have in our older program that we think we consider our emerging leaders. And we take their emerging leaders and they will lead conferences. We're currently about to do something with United Nations. We'll be going to Atlanta, doing some things with them. They just performed at the Pitt Women's halftime show. One of our girls sang the national anthem. They performed for Black History Month. We basically, it's the same thing with them. Whatever they want to work on, whatever they want to focus on, that's what we try to base our curriculum around. And we try to get them opportunities where they can be leaders in the community or start projects that they might want to start. They might come up one day and say, hey, Miss Amber, we have some girls with some hygiene hygiene issues in school. Okay, so what do you think that you should do? What do you think you can start? What do you think, how can you start a campaign? How can you start some type of club? And then we let them take it from there and we basically support and guide them to do those things within their schools or in their neighborhoods. So that is all of them. Pretty sure.
You answered quite a few of my questions in there. And I just want to lift up some of what you were saying. That is so much work. So I definitely want to ask some questions about how you create the environment for staff sustainability. Like how have you been able to withstand and stay in this work for such a long period of time? But also within what you said is that you center the young people and that you ask them to create the solution. And to me, that speaks to your sustainability, because one of the things that I learned early on about Gwen's Girls in your model is that you have a See the Best in Me program, but you don't have it plastered on the building where it says CSEC program or human trafficking program. And so what it does is that it allows you all to create the open space. And if you see that as a need with some of your youth, then you know how to field them and shepherd them around in a program, that there will always be a program for them, no matter where they are in their situation or in their healing process, that there will be some support for them. And so it shows that you're actively watching and actively, they call it, the fancy term for it now is live action research, right? Where people are in live time capturing qualitative research to evaluate their program development and design. And that is exactly what is happening. And it has been happening at Gwen's Girls from the beginning, with your creators saying, we're going to not only have a program for young people, but a program where they won't be separated from their children, because that means more system involvement, which creates higher risk. And so I just want to uplift and highlight that you all are doing that live action research at every turn by continuing to create programs and continuing within your programs to build the things that the youth are specifically asking for. So you're filling the need that they're asking for, and not just filling a need that is assumed that they require. And also you're allowing them to self-define And what I've seen from that is that they are then going out into the community and telling their friends about the program. And you're not having to do the outreach like many of our other programs that we see out in the broader field are having to do to get youth to come in, but that youth have selected this as a safe space and are telling their friends to come along for the ride. So if you could speak to Amber, just just a little bit about staff sustainability. What do you think contributes to staff being able to stay at Men's Girls for the time?
Me personally, I haven't been supervising for long, but what I believe the issue is you have to want to do this work. That like there's nothing else that I can really say other than you have to want to be that part of a positive change. If you keep that focus that I'm a part of a positive thing, I'm a part of something that I want to happen, I'm a part of something that I want to do. If you don't have that mindset that you're just not going to last in any job. It doesn't matter what position you have, what job you do, you'll never last unless that's something that you want to do. And I just want to throw out something funny. When you said we do not broadcast what See the Best in Me is, to the point where our youth don't know what See the Best in Me is. And to be honest, a lot of staff do not know what See the Best in Me is. I have actually been called into red flag meetings once until they figured out who I was. And what a red flag meeting is if someone in our organization has an issue or feels like something's not going right or they need some type of explanation, they could throw a red flag and call a meeting. And basically when we got to the meeting, everybody was like, who is she? Like, why does she get, first of all, why does she get to like do whatever she wants? Which I really wasn't doing whatever I want, but my position is secretive. I can't tell you why I had this youth one-on-one at Kennywood. You know what I mean? I can't, whether you're staff, whether you're, I can't do that. I can't tell you why I had this. I can't tell you what I do because it is breaking confidentiality and it's breaking the trust of my youth. Everyone doesn't need to know that her mother is sex trafficked her. Everyone doesn't need to know that she was a runaway and she had all kinds of videos made up. That's not anyone's business, not staff, not anyone else's. So that I just wanted that out there. That's funny that people still really like, well, what does she do? Why does she always pop up? And you know what I mean? I've actually had like a red flag on, like, we want to know what she does.
Yeah, I get that. And I see it as a way forward for the field in rethinking. I think we got into that because one, to draw earlier in the movement to draw attention to the issue. And then funders saying, well, you have to be doing this with youth who have to be experiencing these things. We've gotten caught up in the titles of it all. When young people oftentimes it doesn't resonate for them. They may not even see themselves as being trafficked. And so when we have these narrow programs, they're missing. It's missing in translation. You also spoke to the way that you collaborate with Black girls in particular. What recommendations do you have outside of really doing the work that you want to do? And sorry, my cat wants to be a part of all of the meetings. She's on the lab staff. What recommendations do you have for listening and utilizing the expertise of Black girls in organizations?
Like I said, personal experience. I think that a lot of the girls respect my opinion and they just respect me in general because I have lived experience. I'm not making up stories. I'm not making up a lie. And they know that I genuinely care. They can literally call me at 4:00 in the morning. If I hear it, I'm going to answer it. Something's wrong. Sometimes they're just calling the vet. Sometimes they're just crying. Sometimes it doesn't matter. If I got that quick 15 minutes in me that could save a life or save someone from running off or getting kidnapped, and that 15 minutes is what they're going to get. And I think that that's what they respect and why they continue to work with me.
Mm-hmm. One of the other pieces that we've noticed and is best practice when we think about sustainability and evaluation are the partnerships. And you kind of touched on some of the partnerships that you have at Men's Girls. Can you spend just a little bit of time talking to us a little bit more about how we got to see it live and in action for the Equity Summit that you all host every year. But can you tell folks a little bit about the partnerships that have been most helpful and have the most impact for the young people that you work with?
Honestly, I would say Tickets for Kids, because it allows them to experience different activities that they may not have been able to afford or maybe never even considered, depending on what culture they come from. We had collaborated with, it's like an African drumming place, and he taught African drumming, African dance, but he also taught the history behind the dance, the history behind the drumming, the history behind things that they wouldn't even think to ask. Let's see, we collaborate with, it's a program next door. I think it's Youth Works, if I'm not mistaken. They're Youth Works, and they do things like skating. Then the girls get a little opportunity to interact with the males, and we can kind of observe their interactions with males and see if they're having appropriate behaviors and see if they are socially awkward or if they need more experience with dealing with other peers. We try to join the centers because we have 3 different centers, and the girls are completely different from each center culturally. You can basically say like the North Side versus Wilkinsburg, like they're completely different children. They don't know each other. They probably would never meet each other. Getting those girls to come together and see like, oh yeah, she's from the North Side and I get along with her, or she's from, Wilkinsburg and I get along with her, and it teaches them that people are just different. Just going out and meet people. It teaches them how to socialize and be open and be able to network and meet new people. I hope I answered that right. Sometimes I get loud.
I think that, yeah, no, that was perfect, because we're talking about sustainability and evaluation in 2 ways. We're talking about the organization, but we're also talking about the program, and we're also talking about the outcomes. And so we're a lot of times when we're seeing assessments and evaluation, it's like, well, how many for mentoring programs is how many people were matched? For residential programs, how many people were housed? But in that is also what changes were made in that young person. How does that young person's social network expand as a result of being in contact with your program? We know that a safety network, having a wider net, is a protective factor. And so to me, building community and making those community connections is a method of sustainable programs, is a part of collaboration. So I appreciate you're speaking to. And speaking of evaluation, can you share with us in your organization, how do you assess your effectiveness and the impact you have serving Black girls?
For the most part, quarterly, they do like a pre-survey, and then at the end of the quarter, they'll do a post survey, and it allows us to see what they've learned differently from the last survey, and it also allows us to know what their needs are. Because a lot of times we didn't know our kids were hungry. We're like, wait, we feed them here, but it's never a thought like, okay, Friday through Sunday, they're not with us. You know what I mean? So it helps us observe what their needs are, and it helps us understand what they understood. Did they get the gist of what we were trying to tell them, especially when it comes to sisterhood, being respectful, being a good friend? Like, you'd be surprised what they pick up when they act like they're not paying attention. But that pre and post survey helps us understand what they did get and didn't.
Yeah, and I can imagine then that the data from that pre and post helps to inform the activities that you plan the next time. It helps.
And we meet about it. We definitely have a whole organization meeting. We go over the data, we go over the statistics, we go over the needs. Like when I say the last time, we were all scared because she was upset about us not knowing that girls were hungry, which, just to be honest, that is something that we should have had a good enough relationship to know. Or you should have been able to come to us and say, listen, when I'm not here, I'm hungry. We should have already built that rapport to know that. So it kind of helps us check ourselves.
Yeah, I so appreciate this, Amber. And I realize that I have just been going off on questions. Thank you so much for your quick response to all of them and for sharing your wisdom. I do want to offer if there are any other questions from anyone else. I wanted to give us an opportunity to ask any questions to Amber in regards to Gwen's Girls approach to programming, evaluation, or sustainability before we move on to the next portion.
I'm saying I'm an open book, so you can feel free to ask any questions. I don't get offended, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I guess if it's okay, I can ask one question, Amber, just about the being accessible and, you know, like you mentioned at one point, how important it could be just giving somebody like that 15 minutes, whether it's to help them through something that's a crisis, or maybe it's just, you know, they needed that space to vent. Have you ever had a time where you felt like it was just too much, you know, and did you ever find that you were getting to a point of burnout being so open and accessible, or ever have to, you know, take that back and say, actually, no, I can't?
Honestly, no. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like I explained before. It's like if I would have had that person, I'm telling you, I might have been a doctor, a lawyer. I could have probably been anything in this world. So it's like a switch clicks on. Like if it's, I'm like one of those people. If it's not going to hurt me, I'm going to do it. Like if it's not going to hurt me, it's not going to hurt you. Why not? You know what I mean? So 15 minutes of me waking up out of my sleep versus you going to jail because you're throwing stuff around your mom's house, or you ready to run away or jump out the window. I'm pretty apt to take that 15 minutes. So no, and I honestly, the only way I'll get burnt out is if I feel like we're not doing anything. I cannot work at a place that is not accomplishing anything, like this, just talking and saying or doing. I can't, like that. That burns me out. But for me to be able to help somebody and then hear their story later and be like, man, Miss Amber, I'm glad you walked me through that. I made it through. Like, it's just, I would rather. I really would.
Thank you for that, Amber. I think also it's important to mention what you highlighted earlier too, with respect to that, which is you can text me and I will respond when I am able. And so even with your always being accessible and them knowing that they can reach out to you, they also know of your boundary. And all of us have different boundaries and different thresholds for vicarious trauma and all types of other things. And it's important for us to hold and know what our boundaries are, where we have our limitations, because the young people will feel it, right? They will know, and our coworkers and our colleagues and everybody else will too. So got to be realistic. And I think it's so beautiful, Amber, that you have been able to both be in all the places and say not right now. And that they know that as soon as you are healthily able to, that you will be there. So thank you again, Amber, for sharing with us the amazing work that you and all of the folks who are with Gwen's Girls are doing there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Amber is often on the calls. Again, these are your peers in the work. It's important for you to know where they are and what they're doing and the different ways that they approach to the work. It's a wealth of knowledge we often have here. So what I wanted to do was give us an opportunity to talk a little bit. And I'm going to hand it over to Lenore for this next portion.
Absolutely. Thank you for such an incredible discussion. I just feel so empowered and energized, and the work is so intentional. So I'm recharged and excited. So I want to have like a brief discussion with everyone, just coming off the heels of an amazing conversation. So the first question that I have is, what sustainability or evaluation practices are being used in your program or organization right now? So from everything that we've talked about and everything you've heard, what are some practices that you currently implement for sustainability and evaluation? And for you to unmute and just jump in on the conversation.
Well, there is one that I know we all do because we are a part of an OVC grant or an OJJDP grant. And I know that semi-annually, we are definitely doing some reporting. So that is mandated evaluation that we do, but I will offer that it gives me an opportunity for me to look at what has been accomplished over the last 6 months. And it gives a realistic snapshot in some of the ways based on the metrics that they ask. And it also encourages me when I'm looking at, say, feedback from these that you all provide for us, where can we lean in a little differently? That's one of the ways that we kind of lean into. We do a lot of other things too, and a lot of it is live action. But looking at those reports is not just the work I have to do, but what can I learn from the data that I'm pulling? And on my wish list is, how do we impose an equity screen on this data? Where are there different outcomes for different groups in the data that I'm seeing across the organization? That's my wish list, to have the capacity to be able to analyze data like that.
Is it all right? I can share.
Definitely.
So one thing my organization has been doing, although it's definitely, I think, a work in progress, is that every Monday we have space where all staff from across our program areas just talk about anti-racism and in general, both like what's going on in the world, what's going on in our own lives, and also, of course, what we're seeing like impacting clients. And so it's a good space, I think, especially because we're mostly virtual, to feel connected, but also to try to ground things beyond just like our own work, and to see the ways in which like we're all of us in a society that's racist. And so, you know, it's a place where we can kind of voice our frustrations and maybe also check ourselves a little bit. So that's one thing I've liked. It also can sometimes feel frustrating because, as I think you've mentioned before, like as you have staff turnover, and we have had like way too much, you feel like you kind of lose some of those thought partners who you kind of understand and you can trust. And then there's like new people suddenly, and the vocabulary, it's like starting from the beginning and other things like that. So it can be frustrating, but it also feels like, I guess, like a hopeful space. At least it's there.
Thank you for sharing that. You know, go for
I'm
it.
sorry. Just real quick, I just wanted to say that we do something similar. It's called a community meeting and a check-in, and we do that before every meeting. And we ask everyone how they're feeling, and they can't say like good. They have to give a more descriptive word of how they're feeling. And we try to sometimes throw in maybe an icebreaker in there too. You know, what's your favorite color and why? If you was on a stranded island, what's 3 items you would take? Just something to kind of break the ice and get people to open up. So that's something we do before every meeting.
Those icebreakers are critical because they help you connect, right? Before we start having like these very deep conversations, we learn so much about each other. I really enjoy that. Two that comes to mind for me. One, it was actually facilitated today from a Youth Catalyst member that works with us here, a consultant with Youth Collaboratory, phenomenal young woman. And she led a space today with team members and the young youth that are consultants on what our love languages are. And I thought that was so interesting because I knew when that came out, we were all trying to do that with our partners, like acts of service and all those type of things. But we're people engaging and we have a relationship. So what are those love languages? What are those ways we can better support one another? And this was led and facilitated by a young person. And mind you, like this organization has existed for eons and no one ever thought to say like, how could I better be of service to you in this work while we work alongside one another? So that was phenomenal to witness and also experience. And I would say the second thing is that I was part of an organization that provided free therapy sessions. Your first 3 sessions were paid for by the organization. So, because therapy can be costly. And if you're also thinking about like, you know, if you want to run your insurance and if you already have your family, it's all the things around it, right? Because it's still not an equitable opportunity for everyone. But getting those first 3 sessions, can make you kind of feel empowered to go, right? Like, well, let me just go real quick and see what this is about. So I thought that that was sustainable, right? Because when we talk about that burnout, a lot of times, all the time, we're real people coming in with entire stories before we even open up our laptops. And a lot of time that comes with its own trauma and tiredness and all those things. So those two kind of stuck out to me. So we have another question that I would love to share with you all, is that what strategy stood out to you that you would like to actually take back to your program? So maybe it's not something you're currently implementing, but something that you would like to implement in your program.
I really appreciated, Amber, when you were talking about the girls connecting across communities, and just building relationships and getting to know the world outside of what they may be accustomed to. And I think that was really beautiful, and an opportunity for us to think about how we do that with our YCT and Girls Action Board, is connect them to community doing work similar or having similar interests.
I would say you'd be surprised. They don't even talk the same. Like you go in one center and the lingo is Loke and I forgot cuz, and you know how the gang stuff go. And then you go over here and I don't hood, they say hoods and all, like they don't even, which we don't know, we try our best to keep them from even talking like that. But it's just crazy. Like it's two different worlds to them. Like there are literally girls that have not been out of that neighborhood. Like they've never been out of there. There's kids that have never been downtown, like to the point for a festival or, you know what I mean? Anything like that. That's why I say tickets for kids is very important, because it gives them those opportunities to go to museums and arts festivals and do zip lining and go to the zoo. A poor family is not going to spend $30 a piece on a zoo. Like it's just not happening. So for them to have the opportunity to have those experiences, it helps a lot.
If I could share too, one thing with this youth collaborative space, I really appreciate that it's been a series, and I've been thinking on this for a while, that in my office, we have like maybe 40 staff, and right now 8 of us, they're our legal services team, they're 8 attorneys. And we will have like law students come in terms of like an internship. We usually have 1 at any given time, maybe 2. And I was just thinking, I've been with the organization for 2 years, and we've not had a Black woman who was like a law student. I know that they are there, in the community, and there's so many law schools in Boston in particular. And I don't know, for my own thinking, I think it would just be a really great thing for our organization and for the community, especially as we have no Haitian Creole speakers on staff. If that is something that, could somehow be developed, and I'm not sure exactly how, but what they say is, whether there's a will, there's a way. I think it would just make so much sense to try to, if we haven't been able to find, like as we've been posting for jobs, because we've had so much turnover, which is so frustrating. Sorry, I'm like throwing a whole bunch of things in there at once, but I'm thinking like we would really love to have someone who speaks Haitian Creole as a staff attorney, and I don't think we should just wait and expect that they drop into our laps. And so something like that, I guess I really wish that we could, I really wish we could do.
Yeah, that intentional and strategic partnering, collaboration, and outreach. That was also something that we observed while in Pittsburgh, was the collaboration that Gwen's Girls holds with members of the court and people who represent the whole judicial branch, and how necessary, I think, and helpful it has been in the development of programs and supports, because they have champions, so to speak, within the system, who are partners and who are collaborating with them to keep families together. So the judge may recommend Gwen's Girls as a program. Gwen's Girls may have a young person whose family is in systems involved and say, hey, this is who I know, this is who you should talk to in the area. And so absolutely looking at what are the programs, the Black Lawyers Associations in the Boston area, that may be a benefit, Panhellenic organizations that may be a benefit, but also going all the way up to the top and looking at who are your champions that you don't know, who may be able to send people your way and vice versa. Because
I would say, I'm sorry if you don't mind me saying, when you talk about the court and how we have a relationship with a lot of judges, to the point where judges will sometimes contact us first to find out about a youth or to find out specifically because we know what's really going on, not what's presented in court, not what mom's saying, not what the youth is saying. We typically know exactly what's really going on. So sometimes they'll contact us before court. It may not even be a case that we had, but they may see that they had some type of involvement with Gwen's Girls. Sometimes the judges will just say, hey, could you just send somebody down from Gwen's Girls just to come down here and maybe meet the youth, meet the mom, see if they need some resources because they may be more apt to work with someone that looks like me than working with a judge that's sitting, above them, giving them orders, telling them this is what you need to do. It would have someone like me go in and ask, what are your needs? What can I help you with so that you're not even in this situation? Let's work around this situation. And a lot of times it ends up with a consent decree so that all records can be erased once they've stayed out of trouble for a certain amount of time. So it becomes a benefit, even working with us. And a lot of youth know that too. They know you working with Gwen's Girls, they going to court with you, they go, you know what I mean? And it makes them want to do better because they respect that.
Well, thank you. Is there anyone else that want to share before we jump into our takeaways? All right, well, we trust that you all got some valuable information on how to make your programs more sustainable. Should you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to Joy or myself so we can have a deeper conversation around sustainability and evaluation. We want to be in community with you outside of just this space. So we look forward to hearing any questions or comments. So in regards to our takeaways today, make sustainability a priority. That's the only way that our programs can last, and it needs to be a priority at all levels of our organization. This includes meeting grant goals, increasing effectiveness, streamlining processes, and developing partnerships are key elements to our sustainability that should be embedded in our programming. Passion and commitment. Amber touched on that earlier. Like, if you're not really passionate about the work, how can we really do this work, right? They're important when addressing commercial sexual exploitation and human trafficking, and in supporting young victims and survivors in their healing journey. However, we cannot do everything and spread ourselves very thin and make our program not as quality as it can be if we do not have those partnerships, if we don't have those collaborations. We can't run off of compassion alone. We need all of the things: partnerships, funding, passion, and community. Importance of strategic planning, evaluation, collaboration. We need to better train our team members. We need diversified funding. We need advocates involved, especially when we talk about this issue, y'all. We need to start ringing the alarm. We need a lot of our advocates that are talking about all the things that we see happening in this nation. We need to be talking about human trafficking, sex trafficking of minors with the same energy, with the same intensity. It's not just something that can be handled in our nonprofit sector. We need our entire communities to rally behind us. And then we also need to develop and refine our messaging. Something that was critical is when we talked about, like, what is your program's name, right? When we are bringing young people, I served at a program where literally, like, on the title, it was like for homeless youth, right? And then they did all like the sad commercials and you holding the sign. Like, we worked with youth that went on to be lawyers and doctors, right? So that's what we need to be calling. These are high achieving young people that live in a world, in a nation that oftentimes forgot about centering their experiences and their healing. So what they've experienced is not the issue. How we addressed it has been the issue. And we need to stop addressing it in our titles, in our social media, in them sad commercials. I'm Haitian. I ain't seen too many sad commercials. Like, can we elevate and empower and make our young people feel seen and heard in our programming? Joy is going to throw into the chat box some amazing resources. And if anything, like I said, if maybe you wanted to jump on another call, we are your community. You are our community. Let's chat. Let's talk about ways that we can connect with one another. And lastly, you're going to also find the evaluation in the chat box. The evaluation is to talk about, how was this experience? It's really critical that we do get evaluations from everyone on this call. That's the only way we can do better, right? We're talking about sustainability and evaluation. If this thing ain't working, we need to know that it's not, so that we can find new ways for us to really be in community together. Lastly, take care of yourselves. I see all and every single one of you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your work. Happy Black Futures Month. We are so thankful just to know all of you amazing people. It gets hard, but we harder. So we got this, and just staying in community with all of you. So have a great day and journey well, y'all.